Alright, so what's going on, guys? My name's Chopper, and welcome back everybody to a brand new video on the channel. Today what we're going over is 10 more things that PUBG removed from their game. A couple weeks ago, I made a video about 10 things that PUBG had taken out, and you guys seem to have really enjoyed that one, so I wanted to make a follow-up and talk about 10 more things that have been taken out of the game as well. Now, these are going to be things that were in the game of PUBG at one point, but were removed for whatever reason, either to be rebalanced or just completely deleted entirely. And of course, before we get started, if you guys could do me a really big favor and drop a like on the video, we're going to aim for 4,000 likes. It really helps support me and allows me to continue what I'm doing, making these videos and all the content that I'm doing on this channel as well. Also, if you do happen to be brand new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button right now. I'm posting PUBG every single day, either that or live streaming it, so stick around on this channel and you'll have plenty of PUBG content coming your way. Go ahead and join my Discord server if you haven't done already as well. That'll be in the description. It's one of the biggest PUBG communities that's out right now, and I encourage you to be a part of it. Go over there, make some friends. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, I need you to let me know in the comment section, on a scale of 0 to 10, how many of these things listed in this video were you around to play with in PUBG? There's going to be a lot of things that are either really new that were removed or way back in basically pre-alpha days from a long time ago. So how many of these were you around for that you actually experienced for yourself? Let me know in the comment section. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get into 10 more things that PUBG removed from their game. So coming in at our number 10 spot is actually like a throwback. This is old school PUBG, what we're getting into. Now, you guys know that in most popular battle royale games today, for the most part anyways, the squad limit is like 1 to 4 players. That's pretty much, unless it's a limited time game mode, the most amount of people you can play with is just a 4-man team. But when PUBG first came out, back in like its almost conception days, the limit per squad, once they actually initiated that feature, was a 5-man squad. Now, this did not last very long, and I'm not really sure whether it was due to game balance or something with servers, as the PUBG like servers really weren't in a great state, especially when it came out. I'm not saying they're perfect now, but they were much worse when the game was just being dropped in, still in its very early days. Whatever the reason may be, I really don't think we're ever going to have standard default 5-man squads back in battle royale. I think that's gone for good, but it's interesting that they had that and they removed it at some point or another. Coming in at the number 9 spot is not that old of a change, but it's a very like important change. Now, we used to have to wait. You have to be patient while you're using bandages if you want to maximize them and get full health out of it. In PUBG, I don't have to tell you how they work. You apply a bandage and you get a certain amount of health back that's like residual over time, and you get it after a couple seconds. And now it's faster nowadays, but when PUBG came out, you'd want to apply a bandage and usually wait about a second or so before applying the next one, or else you'd waste that health bar getting back. I'll just show you a little video clip right here to show you a better example as to what I'm talking about, but I'm glad that they removed this feature and made it so that bandages can't be wasted even if you apply them one right after the other. It was a bad game mechanic, and I'm glad it's not here. So the fact that PUBG went and removed the wait times every time you use a bandage, in my opinion, was one of the greatest moves they could have ever done for balance and just general flow of this game, and I don't think that PUBG would play the same nowadays if they didn't make that adjustment and remove that wait time. So really glad they did. It was coming sooner or later, but I'm glad we have it now. Coming in at our number 8 spot is another feature that goes almost as far back as the 5-man squads. Like, this is really early on PUBG, and believe it or not, there actually used to be a pretty decent fall damage cushion for when you would like jump off of a building or off the side of a mountain or something. You wouldn't take nearly as much damage as you do right now. Now, I'm glad they made this choice, because the way that you move around the map and the way it's evolved and changed and you traverse nowadays is so much different than when the game was early on. So this was kind of necessary in order to keep game balance. But if you jump out of like a 2-story or like off the side of a mountain, you take way less damage than you do now. And unfortunately, since this was so early, I don't have like exact percentages about how much they removed that cushion, but it's something that if they didn't touch it all, what would the game be like today? I don't know, fall damage is one of those things that's just kind of annoying and frustrating, because every once in a while you'll take damage when you really feel like you shouldn't have, and vice versa. I don't think anybody quite understands it to a T, but I still think it needs tweaking. I don't believe it's perfect, and I hope they continue to mess with it to perfect it in the game. But it's interesting to know that they used to have like a really big mercy pillow for that sort of thing. Taking our number 7 spot today, how did I not include this in the last episode? This is such an obvious choice of something that they removed, but I didn't mention it for whatever reason, so I'm going to put it in this one. Now, the energy drink texture change is one of the most iconic patches that PUBG has ever made, and even people who don't know about this game surprisingly know about this patch. So just for the uninformed, the old energy drinks used to look more like this. They resembled a real-life Red Bull can, but it was called Hot Bull, and the colors were inverted, but it was pretty close enough to where you would mistake it as a Red Bull, or it's like a very similar lookalike. Nowadays, of course, it looks more like this, and it's its own kind of brand energy drink that the PUBG Corp corporation itself made for their game. Why this change was made, we still don't really know the whole story. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it has to do a lot with copyright issues and things like that, and PUBG just maybe wasn't in a position to deal with that at the moment, but they ended up making this change, and a lot of people even created a petition to bring back the old logo. Clearly the petition did not work because we still have the brand new energy drink texture, but it's just a nice little piece of PUBG's history to remember the old energy drink texture, and I like it a lot. Coming in at our number 6 spot is something that was like progressively removed. It didn't all happen at once like a lot of these changes. There wasn't a single patch and it's done. It was rolled out very slowly, but I'm gonna go ahead and call this scope freedom. This was removed from us, you know, as in comparison to the pre-alpha days and when the game was very early on. You used to be able to put basically whatever scope on whatever gun you wanted. Like, you want to throw an 8x on a UMP, be my guest. I'm pretty sure you can still do that with something like the S12 in the game now, but you know, the 8x M16 was such an iconic like meta back in the day, and that is of course not available anymore. I'm honestly not 100% sure about the other platforms as far as the scope freedom goes on there, but I would say that eventually everything is going to try to be on the same page as PC, so count your blessings if you can run the 8x M16 or anything of that nature, because those days may be numbered. If at any point you have ever ran the 8x M16, just type F in the comment section right now, because I really think this deserves to be paid some respect. And in contrast to the other changes that I said were overall good for the game in my opinion, I don't really know how I feel about having my scope freedom taken away, right? Obviously something like the 8x M16 probably should be compensated for, and you know, maybe that shouldn't be available, but if I want to go ahead and put a 15x on my AKM, surely that's not a smart idea at all, and I'm not suggesting that to anybody, but I feel like I should have the right to do that if I so want to. I just think that it adds a little more customization the way that you want to play the game, and I just think that we should have the right, if we want to put different scopes on weapons that maybe shouldn't have. But getting away from that and coming in at a number 5 spot is a mechanic that goes as far back as pretty much the prehistoric days of PUBG. You know what I'm saying? Like pretty much when records were being kept about this game, this mechanic was trying to be implied, and I think that if we had it now, it would be really like interesting of how it would affect the game, but lo and behold, it has been removed, and I don't think really anybody's played with it. There used to be a sideways roll mechanic that they were trying to implement and perfect, that it would make sense and be fluid in the game. You guys know that on PC you can use like your E and Q keys or commonly to lean back and forth and kind of peek around corners. This same thing was trying to be applied to while you were prone, and you could like lean to the side while you're on the ground, back and forth using the same key layout, but this never really, like, it was very glitchy, it was super buggy, and it just didn't look right like with the player model, and they couldn't get it in a way that they thought was fit for the game, so they ended up scrapping this mechanic entirely. And honestly, now that I'm talking about it more, it's probably a good thing that it got removed, because nowadays I don't know how much this would even be practical to use in PUBG. I don't recommend proning at all, except in very certain scenarios where you do need it. Otherwise, I say just stay crouched or stay moving, stay on your feet. That's the best way to play if you want to get kills and play aggressive. Obviously, you should prone sometimes, but I don't know how much this leaning while being prone would even make sense or be useful. For the most part, proning is used to heal up or hide from an enemy or something, but people don't stay down prone for an extended period of time, at least the majority of players anyway. But it was an interesting factoid just to have this knowledge that PUBG was working on a leaning while prone mechanic, but it just never happened, so they scrapped it entirely and removed it. Now, coming in at a number 4 spot is a change that I don't really care that they removed either way. Like, it doesn't affect gameplay too much, but if they would have left it in, it'd been funny, because like a lot of awkward moments were made by this. What I'm talking about is when first person perspective was starting to get really popular, you were able to see inside of the plane, you know, when it's going over the map and people are dropping out. Nowadays, whether you're in first person perspective or third, you see the plane from the outside no matter what. And also, if you're in first person, you parachute down and you still see your entire character until you touch the ground, and that's when the camera goes to your specific character. But a while ago, while you were in the plane in first person, it used to look a little more something like this, and honestly, in a weird way, I kind of prefer it, because it was such a unique facet about PUBG, and a lot of games don't do that these days. I know it looks really unpolished and weird, and that's honestly kind of the charm for me, that it was very like different, and it was kind of took you by surprise. So I don't know, it was something that you could parachute down in first person, being the plane in first person. It was interesting, but they removed it pretty quickly after as well. Coming in at my number 3 spot is the flare gun. Now, I'm putting this in like a little asterisk because we're still not certain on the fate of this. The flare gun started out as a limited time game mode where it was regular PUBG Battle Royale Royale, but with squads, obviously, and the flare gun was added into the world, and you could find it, shoot up in the air, and either get a really sick vehicle or a lot of weapons out of a crate. Now, and I also thought that they were really close to adding this into the main game and just making the spawns incredibly rare, but all of a sudden they went back on their word and just ditched the flare gun entirely, and we don't know what its like current plans are supposed to be. I was suggesting that the flare gun should be in Battle Royale, but make it the most rare item in the game, maybe have like, I don't know, 10 to 20 total per map, and that's spread across the whole thing. So if somebody does happen to find it, it's probably only going to be like one in a matter of 10 games, but you'll know that somebody either hit that and they got a really sick vehicle or a really nice drop. I think it'd spice up the game a little bit. I'm a big you know, advocate for the flare gun. I think it should be put back in, but we'll have to wait and see. But so far they've removed it. Taking on number 2 spot is a change that they made really quickly and then reverted after like 2 or 3 days because people didn't like it. But there was a setting with the blue zone where it was more or less like set up for competitive rules, where the blue zone would move in slower, like the speed was not as quick, but if you were outside of the zone, the damage was way more devastating. They did this to increase the speed of public matches, as you know, casual players tend to play a lot different than pro players in competitive matches, so they wanted to make it more like those settings. But needless to say, the community overall did not like these changes, and they went back on it after just like a couple days. My personal opinion is I actually really enjoyed these blue zone changes. I was getting used to it after a couple days, but then they changed it back, and I understand why. And it's not a huge deal in public matches, but I would have preferred to play on like the more competitive settings. But it is what it is. I can't control it, but it's just something interesting that they took out. And now finally, ladies and gentlemen, coming in at our number 1 spot was something I had to do a lot of research for because I didn't know what it was at first. And that being said, this goes as far back goes in regards to this game. There was an attachment called a composite stock that was available for all of the assault rifles to be put on. You might ask yourself, well, wait, there's a tac stock right now that you can put on the M4 and the Vector and things like that. And yes, that is true, but there was a composite stock, something called that would go on all of the assault rifles, such as like the M16 if you want to put on a SCAR, you know, whatever you want to. And obviously right now they don't even have the option for anything to be put on the back end of these weapons, but I think the composite stock was more or less an early version of the tac stock, but they decided to have it only for specific weapons, as it might have been like a really crutch attachment. I'm not really sure why the change was made, but it was something that was implemented and very early like evolved. So I don't think anybody ended up playing with this. I mean, if you did, then congrats to you. That was crazy. Let me know what it was like. I sure have never played with the composite stock, but it was cool to have an attachment that I really have never heard about before. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be the video for today. 10 more things that PUBG removed. If you haven't checked out my first video that I made of this, you want to see 10 more things that have been taken out, then go and check that out. It should be on the up next, or links in the description down below, and you can go and watch that. And also make sure you drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe to this channel if you have not done already before you go. Make sure you do that. Go join my Discord server. And without further ado, I will see you all on the next live stream or the next video. Take it easy, guys, and peace out.